Welcome back to the What Life and let's go racing. So just to fill you in the 20 seconds before we dive into this race, firstly, I am absolutely loving this series. zRacing monthly races are back, and the Lap It Up series, stage 3, they are really ticking the boxes of what I enjoy about Zwift racing. These lap races, I don't know, they're doing it for me. Anyway, let me give you a little breakdown. It's Tuesday evening. This is the 6 p.m. race, 6:10 p.m. British summertime. I did the Manchester Marathon on Sunday. So race Sunday, marathon. Managed to finish that in 3 hours, 6 minutes. I will tell you now, guys, do not rely on cycle training as marathon running training, because your legs will literally fall off after about 20 miles. Not for this time, though, and that's another story. So this is race three in the Lap It Up series. I just thought, I just didn't want to miss out. So I thought I'd dive into a Zwift race, just kind of see how I felt, how the legs were doing. Now, guys, I am contemplating racing in Category A. And why am I saying that? I'll give you the breakdown on some of the numbers, because let me dive into the course stats and everything like that. So it's 3 loops. There's a little bit of a lead in, then 3 loops for this race. It's 21.7k, so just over 13 miles. There is 138 meters of elevation. This particular loop, it's basically 2 points. You get a little ramp up into the volcano, and then you get the, the S's around here. You get a little kind of, it's rolly. So there's 2 points basically on this course where you kind of got to be on your beans just to make sure you don't get dropped off the group. So your positioning is pretty key. As you can see, we have over 100 riders in this prime time Tuesday evening race. And this particular point that we're at now is the point, and you can see everyone burning off their feathers. This is actually the point that has the steepest gradient as you work your way through the S's. Then you go down onto the bridge and you cross the start finish line. And then the lap kicks off, and we're 3 laps in. This was also going to be, you basically do the finish. You get 4 chances, or you get 3 experiences of doing the finish, and then the 4th time you will obviously do it for real. So the finish was always going to be tricky because it's that slight incline. Then you get the decline down to the bridge, and then you cross the sprint segment for the finish. Whew. Anyway. Let me break down the numbers for you, and let me talk about doing some Category A racing and why I think I need to do it. So this race, as I mentioned, 13 miles, 21 odd K. I hold normalized at over 300 watts, but I hold 285 watts, which is 3.7 or just over 3.7, almost 3.8 watts per kg. We'll call it 3.7. So the thing that I'm interested in is basically the power chart at the bottom of the screen, and you can see the times that I'm touching in the red, and I have my FTP set at 300. So anytime it's kind of sharp red, that's usually when I'm over 300 watts. The orange is around 300, and then obviously the blue and the green and the yellow well below in that recovery zone. So I am finding now that I am able to ride within the group a bit more, in a bit more measured and mannered way, that these Zwift races, even the big primetime races, I don't want to call them, like, there was a period when we were getting 200 plus people to these primetime events, and it was absolutely carnage. There was absolute sauce thrown on it. It was super fast, super hard. Little kicks like this would literally tear the group up. But I'm not quite finding that at the moment. A little bit of the spice has been taken off as more and more people dive outside in the Northern Hemisphere and get their riding done outside and move away from esports, Zwift cycling, just cycling indoors on their turbo. And that is more than fair enough. But this is why I think it's actually a good time for me to try and dive in some of the Category A races. And I'm going to talk about some of the positives and the negatives for that. First of all, you can see that there's 2 power-ups for this. There is the draft power-up, and then there's the feather power-up, Obviously the feather becomes in handy as you come on that climb up into the volcano and also through the S's. And then the draft power up, well, I mean, it's useful the whole time, the draft power up, because there's no climbs where you effectively won't be getting some draft bonus at any point on this course. But you can use it quite effectively to like hold on to the group as you are moving through. But you can see obviously power chart again, bottom of the screen, that little blue segment, and then there's the green and the yellow segments where the power just comes off and we can recover. And you know, those are real good chances to kind of move back into the group, find your positioning within the group. Our front group at this point was 70 odd riders, and I think the group is about to split and we're about to drop off maybe 10-15 riders. So ultimately you can just see now we got our selection, little breakaway at the front, little segment. We drop about 20 riders, so the front groups goes from about 75 down to about 55, which is obviously a good thing if you are in it for the racing. But my original point is, why do I think I need to do some Category A races, and what's the point of even kind of saying that, considering that I'm actually not on the very front of these Cat B races? Well, my concept is, or my idea is that I actually use a lot of the Zwift training I use the Zwift racing as just really good training opportunities. And I am finding that as I get more and more kind of competent at racing these Zwift Category B races, that I am able to recover, and some of the periods where the tempo comes off, I am finding it very manageable. So it's not quite pushing me as hard, and ultimately my wattage over that 30-minute period, my average wattage for the race, is not really being normalized or averaged out to a number that I'm necessarily happy with, because I'm not necessarily seeing improvements. So I have two options basically. My two options are this. I either try and drive the bus, get on the front of the group and push the pace. So when other people aren't at the front of the group, or when the group starts slowing down, as you can see it is doing now, as we hit some of those like blue, grey, green patches on the power chart, I would have to be at the front of the group, moving the group forward, you know, to be making a difference to my average wattage, and using this more as a training session than I am for like as a race. And that's exactly what I do at this moment. I think someone dives in the chat, starts talking things up, just saying like, right, who's going to go for it? And I was just like, do you know what? Like, not that my legs were feeling good, but at the same time, if I look at my power chart, it doesn't feel like we're putting much effort in. So I thought, just get to the front of the group. And notice that I don't go to the front and then try and ride off. All I try and do is just give people the indication that I'm up front, or there's, you know, one rider up front, so that it's not just a flat 8 riders across the road. Obviously the hill comes up, everyone kicks it into gear, and then we have to kind of put the power on. But so there are two things I can do, which is I can try and race these Category B races harder during the actual race, which will give me even less of a chance at the finish line, or I can try and do some Category A races and hold on, because I believe, you know, there are a few key differences between Category Bs, or between categories. And the key differences are that when they kick a little bit harder, but also they probably kick for a little bit longer. So there will still be points to recover, but some of the kicks will just be a little bit harder and a little bit longer. And I think I need to start using that, or just kind of throwing myself into that environment so that I can actually like improve, because I'm finding that what's the best way to put it? I'm just not getting the gains and the returns from Zwift racing that I was when I initially did it, because I was thrown into Category B and it was absolute hellfire. I was getting my ass handed to me, and I'm finding now, you know, I'm a little bit more capable. Plus, because people are heading outside at the moment, the speed, tempo, intensity of these Zwift races has come off just slightly. So I'm thinking that this is going to be part one of a 2-part series where I try and do this race later in the week as a Category A, and no doubt I will be coming back and telling you how horrible it is, how I'm not ready for it, how I got my ass handed to me, how I basically just ended up cycling on my own for 30 minutes or something like that. I know, but I want to experience it and I want to give it a go, because again, look at my power chart at the bottom of the screen. There's just tons of recovery, And yes, I know that, you know, I could be the person that tries to get to the front and drive it. But it's hard. I want to be able to sit in a group and be kind of driven and just trying to hold a wheel. And that's when I feel like I can kind of really get the best out of me, and then obviously mix up doing some Cat Bs and some Cat A races, hopefully, and get the benefit of just throwing yourself in the deep end of some better or significantly better riders. Not that there aren't a ton of better riders in this race already, guys. I'm not saying I'm going to race Cat A because I think I'm good enough for it. I'm actually just trying to do it because I'm ready for the challenge of trying to take that next step to get above 4 watts per kg continuously and kind of just really drive on further and improve further. Because at the moment, you know, I don't want to. I love doing these Zwift races. I love doing the zRacing monthly races, but I just want to try and push a little bit harder. And I don't know. I think that seems to be a way of doing it. So I'm going to give it a crack, and obviously take you guys along with me, so you will see how I do. And the goal is to try and bump my average watts up, because I look at the guys who are winning these races, and again, 3.7, 3.8, 3.9 watts. There's guys in the top 10 who are 4 watts. I hold 3.7 for the race. A lot of these guys have a way better punch rating than me. The top 3, or the top 2 certainly are 97% punches. I'm 74. So I still have room for improvement, but I'm not, I feel like I would get, and I would get more out if I was doing some of these like more aggressive races. Anyway, that's me. I'm going to do a Cat A race. You're going to see how it goes. You're going to see what happens. But I am managing to hold this big group with my marathon legs intact. We're going up the volcano climb for the last time, and I kind of had an inkling that this was going to be like a no-look, head down, just kind of punch it a little bit. The group is now kind of a little bit smaller. I reckon we're about 45 riders, and we push a little bit harder. I knew positioning off this climb was going to be very important. But guys are dropping power ups left, right and center. I think I use mine closer to the top to try and get the draft advantage before we go through the arch. So positioning's pretty good. I'm in the mix. I realized that if the group breaks up, I'm going to want to be on the right side of the selection. It was always going to be touch and go. I had no idea, or I don't think anyone had any idea whether the group was going to split. It was just always a possibility, because with the volcano, that little volcano punch, and then the little rollers through the volcano, there was always a chance, because this is actually quite hard. As you can see, you've got to keep the watts on, you've got to keep pushing. So you get little red spikes, a little comes off a bit, another red spike, as I just try and hold on the power chart on the bottom of the screen to the the front end of this group. And we have dropped maybe a couple of riders off the front, so we are we have our little selection as we start moving into the finish. And now as we know, because we've done this on 3 loops, what we've got to do is we've got to survive the S's. We've got a few little rollers. We've got a kick up, and then we've got a descent, and then a sprint. So this is a horrible finish. I'm not sure whether it makes it better or worse than some of the other courses with an uphill finish. I don't know whether I prefer it, but I actually think this is harder, because cycling hard downhill just mentally is like quite a draining thing to do. The power comes off, as you guys can see, because I think everyone is starting to kind of focus and see the finish line ahead, and they know they got to put a sprint in. So we just try and grab a quick breath and breathe before we dive in and do the S's, and then we kind of come out and do the final punch. I'm holding on here. I will have to say that my legs are a little bit sore. I see someone goes. I know that a few of the guys are going to go with someone when they go. We are not too far out from the finish. A couple of rollers, then a descent, then a flat sprint across the bridge. The trick was to not get left behind. So you always want to, well, I was personally thinking, just go with the moves, because if I didn't go with a move and left it too late, I don't think I had the legs to try and chase back on or just sit at the back. So I was doing whatever I could at this stage just to hold on. And I'm not going to lie, I did actually think to myself, oh my God, you're going to make a video about wanting to do category A races, and you're going to get dropped from the group in a Cat B race. But luckily I do manage to hold on. There's only a couple more kicks, and this is it. This is the last kick before descent, so you put your kick in now. I drop my draft boost now because I'm just like, do you know what? I'm kind of not really with it today. I'm not going to be able to hold this. I am struggling a little bit. Put my kick in. Some guys have already melted off into the distance. It looks like the front of the race is already settled. Those guys have done their work. You come off for a little bit on the descent, but you don't get long to recover, and then you kind of, really just got to kick your own ass and get back into the sprint. So I try and double up again for a second one, which I put a semi-reasonable effort in, but then I get dusted at the line and it's all game over. So hopefully, guys, next time you see me Zwift racing, it will be in a Cat A race, and I will fill you in how that goes then. See you then.